Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. My name is JT Olson. With me, my co-host, Andrew Harbaugh. Andrew, thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm not there physically, as anybody who's watching can see, but I'm excited to finally have time in my chaotic schedule to talk about, as we said before we started recording, the most chaotic and entertaining undefeated team in the league at this point.
Yeah, the world may not know it, but the commitment and the ability to make the schedule work from Andrew on the road, it's impressive. It is, no excuses kind of mentality, and I know I appreciate it.
I mean, it took us a couple weeks, so I don't know if I want to heap that much praise on it, but yeah, no, I'm happy to carve out time now. I think we talked about a little inside baseball too. We always tried to record on Wednesdays, and we said we were going to aim for Tuesdays, and then here we are now on a Wednesday making it work because yesterday I had a migraine, and we're back then. That's all that matters.
Yep. Normal schedule to be determined, but we are here now. And really, this is the week to do it because we are the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast, and we just played the first Creamsicle game. And it was awesome. For 3 quarters, the Bucs dominated. It was great. It was way beyond anything I expected with the patchwork offensive line and a Jets defense that is respected across the league with Aaron Glenn as their head coach and everything that the previous regime built there. This, for a lot of the game, felt like a dominating win in a way that I know I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, and it's funny because my prediction kind of went in reverse where the Jets shows I did before the game, I thought it would be close at halftime and then it would bust open in the second half for the Bucs. And it kind of did the opposite where at halftime you're like, oh, this is smooth sailing. I also cover the Vikings, so I was laughing. I was like, I've got 2 blowouts to cover this week. And one remained a blowout, and the other one kind of got too close for comfort. So, no, it was just a reverse of what I expected. But, again, it's not that you want to see your team turn into the cardiac creamsicles, but it's nice to know that you have a quarterback in Baker Mayfield who just finds a way to win. And I think that's something where, again, Cleveland Browns fans and that team has to just be looking in the mirror and punching themselves in the face because you want a guy who's willing to drag your team across the finish line. I mean, that's what Baker's been doing. Not that this isn't a Lombardi-worthy team and everything like that, but whenever they lose momentum or whenever they have a drive that just kind of spins out and it goes into nothing after having a little bit of something, he's able to take the baton and really elevate everyone else around him. So it's fun to watch for sure.
For the 3rd week in a row, no less. Have you ever heard the old saying, once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a trend? Well, yeah. Baker Mayfield has the trend now. He is the most clutch quarterback in the NFL today. Just week after week after week. Big moment after big moment after big moment. He is putting the game on the line. It is on his shoulders, and he is delivering time and again. And I hope every game's like this. This is fun. Maybe, not big lead, unexpected comeback, but, the Houston game, the Atlanta game, this is an exciting team for sure.
Yeah, and I think, too, last year they had a lot of these, and they were losing them. I remember it was either they either blew out a team or got blown out or they were losing those close ones. And it's nice to see that, Honestly, anybody can win the blowouts because, like, obviously anything can happen. I mean, hell, look at, if you want to keep it in the NFC South, I don't think anybody saw the Panthers blanking the Falcons 30-0. But the point is, you can get a blowout, I think, you can win a blowout much easier than you can a close game. And again, I just think it's nice to have and see that you've got Levante on one side, Winfield playing out of their minds on defense, really leading that squad. And then on offense, you've got Baker really, like I said, taking that offense and dragging it and forcing it to score when they have to. And it's funny, all the talk in the preseason was Baker's got to protect himself more. I think he's like less than 10 yards away rushing from what Lamar Jackson has at this point, which I don't think that's what Josh Grizzard wants or anyone in that franchise wants. But if you want to talk about him being a gamer, there's a prime example of it. Like, when you think of Lamar Jackson, you think of that dual threat ability. I don't think anybody thinks of Baker Mayfield as a dual threat quarterback, but so far he has shown that he can be that. And I think that's also an X factor people are outside of Tampa not realizing.
And it's so easy to overlook it with all the weapons the Bucs have. Mike Evans, Emeka Ibuka, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, when they come back, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. You're spreading yourself so incredibly thin to try and cover all of these guys. You're not expecting Baker to just kind of slip out the back door and gash you for 15, 20 yards. But at this point, teams should be expecting it because he's a really important part of this rushing attack, which is gone over 100 yards for how many consecutive games? I know it's getting up there at this point. So I won't go as far as to call him a dual threat quarterback, even though he can tuck it and run on an option. That's really not who you want him to be. But yeah, he's a scrambler. That's exactly what he is. He's, pick your favorite scrambler. Brett Favre or Steve Young or whoever you want to, point to. Baker Mayfield has become that guy.
Yeah, and I think, again, the Brett Favre comparison is such low-hanging fruit, especially with the decision-making being either A+ or, like, non-passable grade-wise. But Favre did that same thing for those Packers teams where obviously they won the one Super Bowl. Reggie White played a big factor in that. But the rest of the games, like, the Packers were always a contender in the NFC North. The Packers were always a 11-12 win team back when you had 16 games, not 17 to get that extra win. And a lot of that was Brett Favre took suboptimal Packers teams and dragged them across the finish line. And obviously, I think I said it earlier, this Bucs team can win. This team can win a Super Bowl, especially winning with all the players they've got hurt at this point. Like, you see the 49ers can't catch a break. I mean, death taxes and them losing at least 2 or 3 players for an extended time is a given. Cardinals are surprising some folks out west as well. NFC North, everyone's just eating each other alive. So I don't know how that's going to keep going. The Vikings are getting beat up. The Lions kind of have it figured out. And then obviously Eagles are undefeated and they come into town this week. So you really have a good litmus test to see how much of this Baker Mayfield effect is going to carry this team starting on Sunday.
Yeah, and we'll touch on the upcoming Eagles game a little bit later. But I think the biggest thing that's going to affect it is more injuries for the Bucs. Obviously, in all the excitement of another comeback win in the last 2 minutes, they lost Mike Evans in this game for a couple of weeks with a hamstring pull. I don't know if we saw officially what kind of diagnosis it was, a mild hamstring strain, but the reports are 2-3-ish weeks. And the hamstring has always been an issue for Mike Evans. It's an injury that can linger. So I hope they go slow with him, although they didn't put him on the injured reserve for 4 games. That's a huge loss for this team. And then another quiet one, Ko Kieft went on the injured reserve, is going to be out for the rest of the year. And he is the Bucs fullback. He's their best blocking tight end. He is a a quiet but significant loss to this offense. And so that's two meaningful hits going into a big game after a week where they lost two of their stars, two Pro Bowl caliber guys in Kalijah Cansey and Cody Mock.
And I think, too, with Kieft, a lot of people forget about the special team snaps he plays as well. You want to talk about a do-it-all guy for this team. Special teams, you saw when it's on for this team. And then when it's not, that's when you let the Jets come back into it. And where this game got closer than it could have been. But no, he's definitely going to be missed. And it's one of those things where fantasy players are not going to know he's missing. Every other fan base is not going to know he's missing. But Bucs fans know from watching, like, he's used in line as a tight end. He's used in the backfield as a fullback, like you said, special teams. He does it all. So they've done a very good job of filling in a lot of gaps and holes whenever injuries happen. It's one of those things where the Moneyball effect is going to take place, where in the movie they talk about Jambi going away, and they're like, well, we got to replace him with X, Y, and Z. And then it takes Brad Pitt snapping and pointing at Jonah Hill, being like, he's got to replace his on-base percentage. But it takes 2-3 guys to do that, and that's going to be the same case with Kieft.
Yeah, a special teams replacement, an offense replacement. It's because he's got a very unique skill set that he's developed as a guy who was a late round pick as a tight end, and he learned how to play fullback and line up in that position. And he's just a guy who's kind of carved a niche in this league, and he's a self-made man, with grit and determination and work ethic and a willingness to do the dirty jobs. And guys like that, they don't get the shine, but they're extremely valuable.
Yeah, no, and that's like I cover the Vikings as well. Like I said, they have so many tight ends like that. Like I think for a while were missing. They had Johnny Munt, who went to Jacksonville this offseason as a free agent, and Munt did a lot of that same work that Kieft did, and I think the Vikings are missing that at this point. They drafted some guys and they got hurt, and they still have a deep tight end bench, but like missing a guy like Munt for the Vikings is the same way. Like I'm seeing it for two teams where having that versatile player really covers up a lot when it doesn't show up on a box score, but it's the difference between winning and losing sometimes.
Yeah, and then even in the short term, Mike Evans, talk about a guy who's the difference in winning and losing. We are going to see exactly how good Emeka Egbuka can be in these next couple of weeks without Mike Evans drawing so much attention, because even though he's having a quiet statistical season, he is drawing all of the attention from the defense. He is, being shadowed by Derek Stingley with a safety over the top. He is being shadowed by, Terrell with a safety over the top. Mike Evans destroys one-on-one coverage, and he has seen very little of it from the tape I've watched. And that's really opened things up for Emeka Egbuka. In the absence of Chris Godwin, he stepped in and been able to really thrive as that wide receiver too, with so much attention being paid to Evans. And now with Evans gone, even with the potential of Godwin coming back, I think we're going to see defenses really hone in on Egbuka, and we're going to see exactly how good he can be without that safety net of Mike Evans drawing all the attention away from him.
Yeah, again, it's not to disrespect Evans, but he really has been the ultimate decoy through the first couple of weeks. But I cannot say enough good things about Egbuka. I mean, again, I thought the pick at the time was not a reach, but I was like, okay, we're kind of just having a luxury. It's like when you have a 3-course meal in front of you and you pull the Family Guy skit. You're like, oh, I'll have the souffle. Like, Emeka Egbuka was the souffle, but now it turned out the rest of the meal's kind of gone bad. And you're like, well, at least we got this. So, yeah, he's been very, very impressive. And it's one of those things where he was always an easy evaluation. He was the safest wide receiver prospect in the draft, and all those things are ringing true. But yes, this is going to be a very big test even if Godwin's back, because I don't think Godwin's going to be, even if he plays, he's not going to be his usual self. I think it's going to take a week or two for him to ramp up. Obviously, you haven't played football in over a year in terms of a meaningful game. So yeah, it's definitely going to be on him for their biggest game early on in the season for the Bucs, for him to make some plays and be dynamic.
Yeah, and before we even shift and talk about the Eagles game and how these injuries will affect that and the new roles these players are going to play, any last final takeaways from this big win over the Jets, this 3-0 start? We've been absent from the air a little bit. Any thoughts you want to get out there about where the team is to this point?
I think, again, this probably won't get the national attention it deserves from either of these guys I'm going to mention. But Yaya Diaby finally getting a tag team partner on the edge in Hassan Reddick, I think, is the biggest difference I've seen on this defense. Like, they were screaming for consistent pass rushing help and pressure, and they never got it last year. And I think that was really a big issue for the defense as a whole, and it put a lot of pressure on the pass coverage. But I think now that Diaby and Reddick are kind of that 1-2 on the edges, Diaby especially is just thriving. He's really having a breakout year. I think I put it out. I looked the other day at PFF, had him at 2 sacks, 15 pressures, or 11 pressures, 15 quarterback hits. Like, he's just in the backfield creating chaos. And I don't think it's talked about enough, and I'll probably never standpoint until he gets paid a big contract, like I'm sure he will. But yeah, Diaby and Reddick have been a blast to watch, especially for Reddick, who everyone came in the year saying this guy hates football. He's just doing it for a paycheck at this point. He definitely seems reinvigorated, like another one of those Jason Light veteran free agent pieces where you take a gamble on him and you get more juice out of the squeeze. So I've been very impressed with the edge rushers as of now.
I think that just makes the Kancey injury that much more painful because with Hassan Reddick returning to form, Yaya Diaby continuing to ascend, Vita Vea maybe being the greatest nose tackle we've ever seen, ever, at least in our lifetime. And then Kancey added to that mix. That is, in my mind, undoubtedly the best defensive line in the NFL. I think that's the best defensive tackle duo in the NFL. And I think for me coming into the year, the edges were more the question mark, but so far it's coming up aces. It's all looking really good. And I think if that group could be together in the playoffs, they'd really be unblockable. So yeah, I definitely agree. I like what I've seen from them so far. But it makes it hurt that much more losing a guy of Kancey's caliber. I really think he was going to have an all-pro year this year. Everything was trending in that direction. He was having a great season before his injury. And I don't think that loss can be overstated. I really don't.
Yeah, you could tell, too, in that Houston game, like, he's in the middle of that rep, and he just, like, all power just was gone. And you could tell when they said it was a pec, I was like, oh, something snapped. And unfortunately, that's the case. So, yeah, no, it stinks. I mean, they left that very tiny window for a return where it's not even he makes the playoffs. They've got to make it to the divisional round of the NFC title game to really have a chance for him back. So there's motivation there. And even if he comes back and plays the Mike Evans decoy role like we just talked about, just having to worry about Kancey's presence helps those guys on the edge, helps Vita Vea. So, yeah, just getting him back for the playoffs is a nice little optimistic thing to have, but obviously you've got to make it there first.
Yeah, I definitely, because that's when you really need him, is when the games matter the most. And even if you're only getting 75% of Kancey or just the threat of Kancey, that's incredibly dangerous, and that's a problem for opposing offenses, especially when you think of the offensive lines in the NFC with Detroit, who their young offensive line seems to be gelling after taking it to Baltimore the other day. Philadelphia has always hung their head on the offensive line. San Francisco, it just seems like they just plug people in, the offensive line clicks. you need a defensive line who can really disrupt that at the highest level. And if they can get Kancey back down the stretch, that is the difference between winning and not winning a Super Bowl potentially.
100%.
All right. So we're 3-0. Really kind of, I don't know, I won't speak for you, but it's about right where I expected them to be. I always thought they'd beat the Jets. I always thought they'd beat Atlanta in week 1. I thought with the circumstance of their torn up offensive line, Houston was a game they could have lost. But I think if you really think of the roster coming into the season, I would have marked that as a win. So 3-0, like I probably would have expected before the year started to unfold. Now going in and taking on the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Initial reactions, how are we feeling?
I feel, one, they always seem to step up when they play Detroit, they play the Eagles, those top tier NFC teams. 49ers last year, they didn't get the win, but they took them down to the wire. I feel like the Eagles, I was talking to the Rams editor, Cameron DeSilva, about it, and I said how the Rams really had the blueprint last week where you've got to put your foot to the floor and you've got to punch them in the face in the first half, but you can't get timid in the second half. And I think, this is no disrespect to the Rams or Matthew Stafford or McVay, but I think, again, Mayfield is built to where even if he takes a punch, he's going to land 2 to land 1. Or take 2 to land 1. And I think that's one of those things where as long as they are constantly pressuring, constantly pushing the ball down the field, constantly trying to run and get Buck Irving involved, get Rachaad White involved. I'd love to see Sean Tucker involved again. I don't know why this team hates him. Again, goes from being FedEx Ground Player of the Week last year, and then he gets like 300 yards the rest of the time. But I think they're built to pressure them for 60 minutes instead of 45 minutes like the Rams did. So I think that's going to be the biggest difference.
Yeah, I think going into this game, the Bucs are actually, I feel more confident about this game than I did the Texans game. I think the Bucs match up really well with the Eagles because the Bucs are a really good run defense. And this is a Philadelphia offense that is carried by their rushing attack. Jalen Hurts averaging less than 160 yards passing a game. Is he the most electric game manager in the NFL? Maybe, but I don't view him as a top-tier quarterback. Even with really good weapons on the outside, I feel like this passing game is pretty stagnant. So I think you take away the running attack and you can really manage this Eagles offense. And when you got Vita Vea, you can take away anyone's rushing attack. And then you look at the defense. They're really strong in the middle with their 2 defensive tackles. And their edge rushers are they're okay. Zadarius Smith is an aging veteran. You don't know how much left he has in the tank. Nolan Smith, is that their Georgia guy? He just went on IR.
Yeah.
Jackson Hunt is a second-year pro who has everything to prove. And as of today, neither of the Eagles' starting linebackers, Jahad Campbell or Zach Bond, practiced. They were both out of practice with injury. So I think this is a favorable matchup with a team that the Bucs have traditionally done really well against under Todd Bowles. I feel surprisingly confident about it.
Yeah, and I think, too, like, to your point about the Eagles' offense and everything, I hate to agree with, like, so many people, but it really has been boring to watch where I think that's kind of tailor-made to the Bucs defense where you saw with the Falcons, like, they had a little bit of a hard time in that first week keeping up with Michael Penix getting the ball out quickly, using when they were using Kyle Pitts a little bit more, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, they struggled with that a little.
Did I lose you? Hello, hello. All right.
Can you hear me?
Are you back? Hello. I got you now.
Okay. What I was saying though is like this Eagles offense is really like the whole remember the Titans Novocaine approach where they just try to lull you to sleep by constantly doing the same thing. And obviously Saquon Barkley helps with that, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, but they don't do anything extraordinary right now. Everything is very manageable. And especially when you got that roll leader and Vita Vea in the middle of the defensive line, everything is able to be stopped as long as he's in there. So I think this is always the matchup where I'm so excited to watch him because I feel like he gets backed up because he knows it's on his shoulders. And he hasn't had a bad game this year, but he hasn't had like that big difference making game. And I think that's what we're going to see from him this week where they are primed for the taking. Like this is, you want to talk about how people are saying the Bucs are the worst undefeated team. I'm not saying the Eagles are a bad team, but they have not wowed me to this point.
Yeah, I think because they struggled more than I expected them to week 1 against the Cowboys. And they beat the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are 1-2. I don't know what the Chiefs are at this point. So, I mean, you look at the names they've conquered, and, they're all the big names, the big brands, the, MVP quarterback, the star, America's team. But it's looked ugly, and we don't even know how good their opponents are. Now, granted, you could say the same thing about the Bucs. They've got a combined opponent record of 1-8. But I'll tell you, going into Houston for that home opener, especially with the condition the Bucs offensive line was in, that was no easy task. That's a good Houston team who is struggling to find themselves, but that defense is legit. You start the season on the road versus a division rival who's looking to take control of the South. That's what they were projected to do last year, and now they came back to do it this year after sweeping you twice. Going in and getting that was not an easy win. I don't care what their record is. And even this Jets team, the fact that the Jets came back and took the lead felt extremely fluky. It took a bizarre touchdown call on 4th down, which he didn't even have a single hand on the ball a second before it hit the ground. And it pinned it against his leg, and the ball moved like crazy, and they still somehow called it a touchdown. And it took a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. Like fluky things that you are not going to see very often, all working against the Bucs. So I think the 2 teams they played on the road were good teams, and those are good wins. And I feel like they really dominated the Jets for most of that game, even with a strong New York defense. So, I mean, I'd say who's looked more impressive? Even if it's been a really close sneak by win, I think it's been the Bucs.
Yeah, and you talked about too, like they have a meat grinder of a schedule. Like I think next week they play the Ravens, the Eagles do. So like it doesn't get any easier for them. But that being said, yeah, like they beat a Chiefs team that looks like you want to talk about a team looking like a shell of themselves. Like they are very much just not what they have been. And I don't know what the issue is in Kansas City, and to be honest, it's not my problem to figure out. But yeah, like I said, the Eagles, like you said, struggled week 1 against the Cowboys. That was coming off the Micah Parsons trade where everyone's like, oh my God, this team's got to be morally depleted and this and that. And Cowboys still got up for that, gave the Eagles everything they had. Maybe if there's not that weather delay, maybe they have momentum. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb doesn't drop a couple balls there. They're not undefeated. So both teams are going into this undefeated, but both teams very much have had luck on their side. But I think the Bucs have shown the way they've won is different than the way the Eagles have won, and I think that's going to matter.
Yeah, because the Eagles really haven't faced a lot of adversity yet. You know, it's not like Jalen Carter has been out to start the year. It's not like AJ Brown has been out to start the year. This is an Eagles team that's been at full strength, and I think they had their first major injury with Nolan Smith going on IR. But even him, he's an okay player. He's a solid player. He is not a star by any means. He's not a Pro Bowl caliber player like, you know, Godwin or Wirfs or, all these guys the Bucs have had on their injury reports. So we've been seeing really what might be the best version of the Eagles struggle, and an incredibly injured Bucs version of themselves struggle but emerge victorious. And I think their best football is still ahead of them as these guys come back. Wirfs potentially playing this week. Godwin was a full participant today. McMillan will be back. The Gadecki will be back. So I think these are two teams that might be trending in different directions. And right now they're kind of at that crossroads where they're both at the same point.
Yeah, and I like you said, and I said, that just the Bucs doing what they've done, missing who they've been missing, has to give them momentum and an edge over this, where Eagles have been looking sluggish with all of their guys, whereas the Bucs have looked sluggish at times, but they're pulling rabbits out of their hat with Charlie Heckett tackle and Logan Hall and Elijah Roberts splitting the Elijah Canty role. Logan Hall's now hurt too, but and Levante David didn't look himself last week either. I mean, so they're winning despite all those things, versus the Eagles are winning not despite anything, but just again, and the Bucs are kind of built to withstand that.
Let me ask you a question, because the Bucs are starting to get some guys healthy, and we might see the return of Tristan Wirfs this week. Let's assume Wirfs plays. What do you think the Bucs offensive line looks like as they've shuffled and reconfigured it so many different ways this year? Now that they get Wirfs back, how would you run this unit out on Sunday?
I would keep Barton at left tackle, keep Klein, Bredesen, and my gosh, who's the other guard? Brain fart.
Haggard?
Yes, yeah, because he filled in because of Moffitt. And then, I wrote that this week. Tristan Wirfs is the only tackle to be an all-pro at left or right side. Use that. Just put him on the right side for now. He's basically like a versatile driver where you put him in the United States or England, and he's going to be driving aces around everybody. So I think you need to take advantage of that versatility with him and put him on the right side. Keep Barton at left, who he's been more than serviceable there. I think that way kind of maybe open up the run game a little bit, keep Baker Mayfield to have a little bit of cleaner pocket, more time. That's what I would personally do. What if they do that? I don't know, but I would love to hear a better answer if they have one.
See, I think that's interesting because I take a different approach to it. I would actually go everyone in their normal positions. Wirfs at left tackle, Bredesen back at guard, Barton at center. Put Klein as your other guard, and then Heck as your right tackle. Because, honestly, I'm not as worried about Heck because I'm not as worried about these Eagles edge rushers. And even if they are disruptive, you can chip with a tight end. You can chip with a running back. You only have one real spot where you feel uncomfortable because the left side of your line is locked down. I'm much more worried about Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. So I want my interior guys back at their normal positions so they can deal with those guys in the middle. And I want to get Luke Haggard out of there as quickly as humanly possible. So even if that means Heck is in there, I'm fine with that. In fact, I don't even mind that Heck would be in there because he can just down block on Carter all day and make his life miserable, because where he is a less than ideal pass blocker, he's kind of a goon as a run blocker. I thought he played really well in terms of run blocking this past week. So I would like to see them get their interior strengthened up and kind of live with Heck on the outside.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like you said, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, the two big problems in the middle. That would make more sense to move Barton in there to handle them. So, yeah, I think that's also a viable option for sure.
And I think it's so cool that we don't know. And the Bucs have been very hush hush about this. They made a point to all of the people in the media who were at practice. Hey, rules say don't report what these configurations look like. Don't report what we're doing here. We're trying to keep this hush hush. So they're really holding people to that because they want it to be a surprise on game day to make it a little bit more difficult to prepare because they have options. Barton can play left tackle. Worst can play right tackle. They can continue to shuffle this however they see fit. And you want your best five out there, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like with the guys who are available. And neither do the Eagles. And I think that's really cool that we get to speculate on that.
No, for sure. And either way, I'm not worried one way or the other. That's the other crazy part in all this is that no matter what they do, I have complete and utter faith at this point that it's going to work, which is hilarious, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, the offensive line coach, Kevin Carberry, I think has done a great job with the likes of Michael Jordan and, Luke Haggard getting, what felt like 10 holding calls in this past game. He actually didn't get Baker Mayfield killed, which was nice. And, Elijah Klein and Barton at left tackle where he's never played in the NFL. And he's really patched it together and made it work in a way that I don't think most teams could do.
Yeah, it's been very, very impressive for sure.
Let's look at another interesting battle in this game. And I think it's interesting because I think the Bucs have been a lot better than people anticipated. And that's the Bucs secondary, specifically their corners versus these Eagle wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, two really good pass catchers, one of the better pass catching duos in the NFL. But is that an advantage for Philly with the way Jamel Dean has been playing, the way Zion McCollum has been playing? We're starting to see more Benjamin Morrison, get worked into it. Jacob Parrish has looked really great. The safeties have both looked great. How are we feeling about this matchup, Bucs secondary versus Eagles receivers?
I think it's a very good, safe matchup, if that makes sense, where Parrish and Morrison get a really good test between A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Jamel Dean gets a chance to shine again. And I think getting those guys exposed to receivers like Smith and Brown, who they arguably haven't seen so far, definitely Morrison because he missed the first couple weeks, but I'm interested to see how they handle it. And Morrison, I thought, played better last week at times versus others. And so I'm very interested to see how he does because I keep mocking cornerbacks to him, and I don't want to, but I need to see something from the group. And obviously, Jamel Dean may not be along for the group, and that'll affect things. But I want to see Morrison pass this first big test of his rookie year.
Yeah, I like that they're bringing him along slowly because they don't have to put him in there. Dean is playing great. McCollum's playing well. I like that a rookie cornerback can acclimate to the NFL because that's a really difficult transition. I think in terms of positions that have to adjust to the NFL, corner might be the most difficult outside of quarterback. So I like that they're kind of easing him into it. But even more than that, I like that they have the luxury to ease him into it because of how well those other guys are playing.
Yeah, and again, I think all the injuries have been handled very, very well. With Morrison going from should have been a top 10 pick, arguably, to falling to the Bucs in the second round. They had the pieces there to be patient, and now it's paying off. And like I said, he has a chance to really show everyone that he deserved to be in that first round. Same way Will Johnson, who fell the same way, has done so in Arizona so far. So I'm excited to see Morrison in this big game for sure.
Can I ask a question? Because I feel like I'm a little bit of a hater in this way. Where do you rank A.J. Brown in terms of the wide receiver hierarchy in the NFL?
I think if he, I think he's one of the best. I think he's. It's kind of like how if Army or Navy had a really good receiver, you wouldn't know it type of deal. Just because of the way the offense is. Like if Pat Mahomes had AJ Brown right now, I think the Chiefs would be the scariest team in the NFL. Just because they want to push the ball down the field, they want to be aggressive in their passing attack, and Brown's built to do that, but that's not what the Eagles want to do. And why, I don't know. Um, it's like you've got the Maserati in the garage and you just want to look at it. You don't want to take it out because you don't want to dig it up. Like at some point, you've got to take it out, put some miles on it. And the Eagles just aren't doing that with their guys. They paid both of them. They want to have them around for a while. They want to give them big money, but they're just not using them. And I think for Brown, like I said, easily, I think a top 10 wide receiver, probably a top 5 maybe based on pure talent, but the Eagles are making him look like just a shell of himself, and I think it's more the offense than it is Brown.
Yeah, and I kind of land there too. I kind of rank him like 5, 6, or 7, kind of in my wide receiver ranking. Um, I kind of flip flop. I think I probably put him at 6, and then maybe Puka Nakua might go ahead of him, so put him down to 7. But I think back to the offseason where PFF named him the best wide receiver in the league. A lot of people view him as top 3. And I kind of go into this game feeling comfortable with him being left on an island with any of our corners. Part of that's just because he doesn't have that explosive speed. But I know this in my head, I know that this is an incredible player. I know he's incredibly talented. He's been incredibly productive. He's having a Mike Evans type career so far. And, we sing the praises of Mike Evans all the time. But I don't fear A.J. Brown the way I feel like I should with how some people talk about him.
No, and I think that's fair. And again, at this point, you're not, if you leave him on an island, you're not asking A.J. Brown to beat you. You're asking Jalen Hurts to beat you because he's the one who has to get the ball to him. And I don't know if he can do that consistently. And obviously, we've not seen it so far this year. But that's why, again, I think it's a good test for Morrison, a good test for Dean, good confidence builder for both of them. So it is a prime matchup for the entire secondary to go against these guys.
All right. Let me ask you, do you have any kind of bold prediction for this game? Any kind of, I expect to see this? And then how do you see this game playing out?
I think it's funny. I kind of see it a lot of the same way I did the Jets game, where I think the Bucs could come out in the first half, and they very easily could be up like 21-6, 21-3, 24-7, like something like that. And obviously, I think it could get closer in the second half, but they are built to blow the doors off this Eagles team. And I think they're due for a game where they can do that. It's whether or not they can execute it that way and everything like that with the people they've got missing. But I fully believe this is either going to be very, very close and the Bucs or Eagles win, or if there's going to be a blowout, I think it's the Bucs blowing out the Eagles. And I think they're capable of that. I really do.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I do think it'll be close, but I don't think the Eagles are really going to threaten this Bucs defense. They scored 33 last week versus the Rams, but I know they had a late touchdown on a blocked field goal in that game. So really, they're kind of mid-20s offensively. I don't know that they crack 20 in this game because this is a game they have to run the ball, and the Bucs are the best run defense they've seen. So you really key on Saquon, who I don't think has looked quite the same as he has last year after that massive workload he took on. We see it all the time in the NFL. If you get 500 carries, next year you're going to lose some effectiveness, and that's just how the human body works.
Yeah.
I think Saquon's kind of going through that a little bit. So if the Bucs can take him away, if they can keep him just limited, not to go crazy even, if he just is average, I think this Eagles offense has a really difficult time getting into that 20-point range.
Nope, wholeheartedly agree. Like I said, I think this can be a showcase game for the Bucs for sure.
And I'm going to put it out there. Levante David is going to move up the leaderboard for all-time tackles and loss. He's right now 7th, tied with Jared Allen and DeMarcus Ware. He is 1 behind Von Miller from moving up into 6th place. And I think he's going to either tie Von Miller or pass him in this game, because I think the Bucs are going to blitz this team like crazy. I think they're just going to send everyone at Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. They're going to make him get the ball out quick and accurately to his wide receivers and make them make plays. I think Todd Bowles is going to have this team in hell.
No, for sure. I definitely think it's going to be one of his all-out pressure approaches, and that'd be the best for him. But not to take over a little bit of hosting here, JT. I'm pulling into my house here, but I'll give you a final prediction if you want to end on that.
Excellent. Perfect timing.
I think if I had to put money on a final score, I'm going to give me 31-17 Bucs. Like I said, I think it can be – I don't even know who the betting favorite is, but I think the Eagles are just going to be overwhelmed. I think this is going to be a big learning experience for them where they go in next week and they kind of blow the doors off that team. But I think the Bucs, like I said this week, 31-17 is what I'm going to give them as the lead.
Yeah, I like it. I think 17 is a really good score. I think it'll be a little bit closer, maybe like 23-17. But I could see this getting out of hand a little bit if these Eagles linebackers don't play, because you're asking a lot of that secondary. And I like that Eagles secondary, but this Bucs rushing attack is real. And I think now that there's maybe shifting some of their guys back to their natural positions, this could be that breakout game for Bucky Irving that we're waiting to see. So we'll see. We don't know what this is going to look like on the offensive line, but if these guys are getting back to what they do best, this could be the game they kind of run all over their opponent.
No, for sure. Like I said, I think it's prime for a showcase for the Bucs. Worst case, it's close and they still win, I think, but no, it's going to be very entertaining. I'm sad they don't get the primetime treatment and it gets a 1 o'clock time, but nonetheless, it's going to be much watch.
All right. Before you got to duck in and get your family to bed and all that kind of thing, tell everyone where they can find you. Tell them what you're all about.
Yeah, I'm the managing editor for Bucs Wire over on USA Today. You can find me on Twitter at MandrewNFL. All of our stuff there, getting ready for the game and college football this weekend for Bucs fans to watch and key put prospects. All there. So I'll keep it short and sweet for you.
Perfect. And on that note, we're going to call the show. Both of us calling for a Buccaneers win over the Eagles. I think we both feel like the Bucs are the superior team, especially now that they're getting healthy. And we will see y'all next week, possibly Tuesday, possibly Wednesday. We'll see how it goes. But until then, go Bucs.